you've been feeling the call to write a book, it is no accident. Your book is needed in the world, so let's make it happen. I'm Nicola Humber, and this is the Unbound Writers Club. Hello and welcome to the Unbound Writers Club. I nearly said the Unbound Press. Because today we are joined by one of our magical authors from the Unbound Press, Elizabeth Cambanos, who is creator of the Cyclical Journal. So this is really exciting. What Lizzie has created is it's a hybrid of a self-development book and a journal, and it's designed to support women to embrace their cyclical energy so that they can live an aligned and powerful life. So acknowledging your cyclical nature and living in alignment with that is such a key part of unbound writing and living in an unbound way. So when Lizzie got in touch to talk to us about her book/journal, I don't want to call it just a journal because there is so much in this book in terms of Lizzie sharing her own experiences and stories and her wisdom. And as soon as she got in touch about it, like I say, I was like, yes, this is an amazing fit for us at the Unbound Press. And I am just so delighted that now it is out in the world. It's interesting because as we were recording this conversation, Lizzie hasn't even held her own copy, a copy of the journal in her hands, because she lives on a small Greek island. And so she had to send the proof copy to a member of her family to check through it. So, I'm really excited for her to get a copy very, very soon, hopefully. But love this conversation. Like I said, this is so aligned with the whole idea of living, creating in an unbound way. I know that a lot of women in the community would really, really love and benefit from kind of working with this journal. So let's discover some more about it and how Lizzie actually brought this idea through. And yeah, let's do that now. So, Lizzie, welcome to the Unbound Writers Club.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm really excited for our conversation and so much to dive into around your book. But the question I always begin by asking is, what in particular makes you an unbound writer?
Mhm. Well, I guess when I think about the word unbound, I almost think of the opposite, bound, being sort of restricted and sort of tied up, almost like, okay, my boy and mom coming out here, but like Spider-Man, sort of caught in a web almost. And I feel like an unbound writer is sort of like breaking through the sort of web of whether it's sort of capitalism, social ideas, patriarchy, all these sorts of expectations that are placed on us. And even like the way we're taught to write to some extent from like the schooling system, I just remember growing up and like sort of really playing the game of writing to get the grades. I just knew how to get the marks rather than actually writing from a place of my own point of view. And so I just feel like this is more of an exciting opportunity to really sort of get my own authentic voice coming through, breaking through that sort of social conditioning.
Beautiful. That's exactly how I experience it, actually. Almost physical sense of
Yeah.
being.
We're both wrapping up.
I know we are. We're both wrapping our arms like around
Yeah.
it, like that sense of being bound and breaking out of it. Like, very physical. I love that. I love that. So tell us some more about the Cyclical Journal, like this incredible book that you have birthed. Like why did you feel called to create this particular book?
It wasn't part of the plan. So I thought if I ever wrote a book, it would be a children's book. I guess I thought that would happen, but it wasn't part of the plan. I was teaching yoga and I was doing women's health as sort of a side hustle. And this is pre-COVID years. And then I moved to Capelania, a small Greek island, during COVID, just before Brexit, and when the world went into sort of lockdown. I think everyone has their little story, don't they? And then obviously the world moved online, and I sort of attempted to go online as well. I did a couple of courses and sort of like I piloted an online 4-week cyclical women's health coaching program, and I loved it. At the same time, I fell pregnant and I was basically sick for 9 months straight. So my life went on pause basically. And I realized though, even though I couldn't necessarily work with women online, I had like the capacity and all the materials to basically, rather than doing it online, put it into a book format. And a couple of people also said that the coaching, the way the pricing works, it was too expensive, and I wanted to create a sort of more accessible approach, almost like a coaching in a book format, and sort of holding people's hand as they go through the process. So it kind of initially was born from that idea from a very sick pregnancy, and yeah, it came through many years. I guess it sort of evolved into this book, sort of hybrid book journal format.
Did you always know it was going to be like this hybrid of a book and a journal? Because it's certainly not just a journal, it's so much more
Yeah.
than that.
Yes. Again, no, I didn't really have a sort of particular plan before. I didn't know I was going to write the book, but I guess I sort of like wanted to sort of go over the sort of, obviously a normal typical journal is sort of like, the dates and how we work in the circadian rhythm, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I wanted to approach it a little bit differently and sort of look at the whole sort of cycle and approach it. It's almost like putting a sort of typical diary into a woman's hormonal cycle format. So sort of walk it through at the beginning, a bit about my experience, sort of kind of my voice coming out a little bit, and then it's a bit of the coaching formats as well. Kind of wanted it to be a approach of people can take what they want and they can leave it if it doesn't resonate, and then they can use it as they feel fit to, or their needs and what inspires them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I love the way you share like your own story and experiences as part of the book. Like it really, really brings it to life. How did you get started? Like you say, it wasn't planned. So when you were first kind of feeling this call to bring this book through, like to create this journal, what were your first steps?
So I guess going back even more, why I'm passionate about sort of cyclical living is because I just wasn't taught it basically. I think everyone had their own sort of menstrual cycle story. So mine, I just had very irregular periods all through my teenage years. Just literally didn't know when they were coming, when they were going. Just didn't really pay any attention to my cycle at all. Was very disconnected. And then it continued until I realized that I didn't have a cycle for about a year. I thought, oh, actually, I should probably do something about this. And everyone else is like, what do you mean? I just did not have any awareness of my cycle. And obviously realizing, just not didn't have enough education around it. So I got a diagnosis and I got told I had PCOS and I'd have to go into heading medication and this, stuff, and that, and the other. Anyway, I was then taught cyclical living by a friend in South Africa, Andrea, her name is, and it just sort of blew my mind, like how such a simple concept of like relating it to the seasons and how we have that sort of infradian rhythm, not just the 24-hour cycle, but we have that monthly cycle and how our hormones fluctuate throughout the month. And it just blew my mind, even though it is a very simple concept, the spring season being the follicular phase, the summer season being ovulation, luteal phase being like your inner autumn, and then the menstrual phase being your winter. So I talk about that in the book, obviously. And yeah, then I managed to get my cycle back eventually and just was very passionate about the cyclical living. However, being in a sort of very patriarchal society, I just find it is very difficult for women to continue living in tune with their own inner cycles, whether they're on the pill or, as I say, just lots of burnout issues that a lot of women face. The speed of our society is just very fast paced, go. So it really is difficult to find some time to implement rest and actually live according to our cycle. So that's where the sort of course went into, I guess, in the women's health coaching as well. A lot of people also talking about their hormones. I feel like a lot of people have hormonal issues.
Mm.
It's just, we've gone through International Women's Day, a few days ago, and how I think everyone would speak to, like, if this was men going through this issue, I don't think it would be an issue. I think there'd be so much more funding into our hormones and so much more support, whether it was, the whole cycle, even just from starting our periods to the childbirth to the postpartum to perimenopause and menopause, this whole cycle, there is not enough funding and awareness. Obviously now with social media, this is obviously before social media, I was going through this journey. there's a lot more information. But even that, there's so much information, it can also be overloading. So
Mm.
that's where I wanted to provide a little bit of information in the book, but also allow the reader to commit to their own body and sort of find their intuition as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. You have done a great job of that. I'm curious, actually, as you're speaking there about like our cyclical nature and how very often, we're not, I know I wasn't aware of, I didn't pay any attention to my own cycle for a very, very long time. And then it was a revelation to me. And I've definitely noticed, and I've noticed this with other writers, it's a big part of how I hold space for the book writing journey, is that, whatever point we're at in our cycle, which could
Mm-hmm.
be menstrual cycle, like if we have one,
Mm-hmm.
or it could be the lunar cycle
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
It impacts the way we feel about our books as we're writing them and what we feel called to do. And I wonder if that showed up for you, that
Sorry,
cyclical
the
nature.
book was launched, I was heavily into my little minstrel phase. I was like, self-doubt, self-doubt, self-doubt. The timing of it.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
definitely. And of course, I write about in the book, and I go so obviously in the book, it's sort of time for the second part, the hybrid part, where people can build out their own experience. I also do little nuggets of my sort of experience as well, again, whether they relate or not. And one of those sections is, like I say, like I've just finished it, and I've just questioned myself like 20 million times whether I should even publish this book or should I just give it all up. At the end of the cycle, I always go through this phase, but it's like I kind of know it now. I know to expect it. I know the pattern. Where maybe if I wasn't aware of it, I probably would have given up a long time ago.
yeah,
Definitely
yeah,
noticed that. The creative burst of energy that comes through, and then there's times in the month where I just couldn't write, couldn't sit down and write it as well. So just being aware of the cycle then allows you to, I guess, take advantage of it to some extent. So to make you, not to make you more productive, that sounds like quite masculine, but to yeah, just draw on the different energies and not sort of push through like, oh, I must write this book. I'm gonna force myself to sit down and write it when it's just not the right sort of energy that I'm in.
totally, totally. And just to know, oh, I always feel like this. Like if it's that doubt that's coming up, I always feel like
Mm-hmm.
this at this part of my cycle. Even though when we're in it, it's like, actually, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to come out of this, but we do. Having that awareness is so powerful, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you talked a little bit there about some of the doubts that came up during the writing process. I mean, were there any particular fears or doubts that you experienced as you were birthing this book?
Yes, I guess even when even like explaining it to family and friends, and then someone's like, "Oh, your book's about periods," and like, sort of, I guess, and it's like even that just the like the word a period isn't really, or menstrual cycle is not it's kind of slightly taboo. It's not really spoken about in general. Okay, amongst your girlfriends now, it's becoming more spoken about, even just other issues in women's health. So yeah, even to some extent, the topic of the book, even though there's a lot more, as I say, talk about lunar cycles and different cycles in general. It's not necessarily about, it's not very scientific at all. So definitely in that sense, and then also people just like, oh, you're a writer, like you write. Is the whole kind of imposter syndrome coming out as well? But then just accepting it as well. I guess the imposter syndrome, everyone always looks at it in a bad way, but it is also just a way that our identity is shifting. We're sort of breaking into something that's is different, it's new, and it can fears do surface up, and the self-doubt fears comes up, but it's, I think, quite a natural process as we step into the unknown.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. I love the way you related the imposter syndrome to identity there. That it's just, we're shifting it into a new part of our identity. That feels really, really powerful. I mean, how did you navigate those fears and doubts? Was there anything in particular, any kind of practice that you have, or anything that felt helpful around those?
Yeah, it is working a lot on mindset. That's a big part of it. And even in the writing process and just doubting. Obviously, I wrote it. I think I started writing this book about, it would have been about 3 years ago now when I officially sort of started writing it. And it would have been a completely different book if I had written it now. I feel like I've evolved as a person so much. Obviously, going from having one young child to now two children, and gone through the baby phase throughout this as well, and moving here, and lots of things have been going on in the last 3 years. So it is, the book has completely changed how, if I'd written it now. So you kind of get the point like, oh, I would have loved to change that. Oh, I should have added that in reading it now. Like, oh, I would have rephrased that differently. So you just keep questioning and doubting yourself. But actually, ultimately, a friend said it to me, actually you can't keep going over and over and over again. This perfectionism is never going to be perfect. You're always going to look back, and as you have evolved as well. So if it can even just help one person, one woman, anyone, even just one person, or just form a version of me, even myself as well, it is going to be worth it to just have it birth when it is ready.
Totally, totally. And I so resonate with that. As someone, I'm going through the final stages with my book at the moment. And it's like, oh, I would add this bit or
Um,
change this bit. And like we could
just have
be
to let
in
it
that
go.
exactly. It's like, no,
Surrender,
it's done.
surrender.
It's
Yeah.
done. I just want to ask you actually, because you've just spoken about, like, obviously your situation's changed quite a lot since you began writing the book. Like, you've been navigating a lot, like motherhood. Like, you know, you live in Catalonia. Like, I know, like, through the writing processes, we've been working together. There have been different kind of things that have been coming up and getting in the way.
Yes. Yeah,
how
moving
how
house.
how do you navigate, like,
Yeah.
actually writing a book and bringing a book together as you have this like really full life with two young children and everything else that life throws at us?
Yeah, I feel like when I first did initial writing, it kind of came almost like a download. It came quite quickly, and then I guess, like a cycle. I guess I almost thought when I was going to write a book, it was going to be like, ironically, a step by step, like a climbing the ladder hierarchy, opposite to what a cyclical book is. But obviously, it was very messy, and it did go around in circles a little bit. It wasn't a very sort of clear, straight line process. So even though it initially came to me, then it was like a pause a bit, and then the lights got busy, and then and then another bit of energy came. I could sleep through the night again. I could write a bit again. It's also just acknowledging and knowing it's okay not to do everything in one go. It's okay to press pause on life. Like 9 months when I just press pause on life when I was pregnant, and even to some extent the newborn year, you can pick up again. I feel like there was a big fear of like, oh, if I don't do it now, I'm going to fall behind and it's never going to happen. I think it's just releasing that sort of fear of time and having to do it now. And actually we can sort of go in cycles, and maybe 1 month there's a bit of a busier cycle and next one is a bit slower. And so just, I think it's releasing a lot of expectations. And then when I did have more the energy, that's when I could focus more, and managed to get more done in a short amount of time as well by
Yeah,
working with the cycle.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, actually, I really noticed that with your process. It's like, you know, when you were in it, you were just like getting stuff done. It was like amazing. So
And ghosted for a
allowing,
while.
allow, yeah, yeah, allowing that's really, really powerful. How do you feel now the journal's out in the world? I know you haven't actually held a copy in your hand,
Yes, I
like,
was going
yeah,
to say it feels very surreal, because I haven't had the physical copy, and I'm going to get it in a few weeks' time. Obviously, with the postage being difficult to Catalonia, I'll get it when my parents come to visit.
Mhm.
So that will feel, I think it'll hit home more when I have a physical copy in my hands. But yeah, it's exciting, but nerve-wracking as well. Just again, the imposter syndrome coming up. I know it's there. Not feeling it as much now. I'm sort of in that follicular, more confident phase of my cycle, so embracing that. But yeah, when people do hearing the reviews and seeing what people think about it, it'll be interesting to see. But I'm just hoping that it'll help. As I say, even just one person. That's what we do the work for.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure it will be many more than one as well. It's like such a great book, such a great kind of resource to work with. I love it. I mean, cyclical living is such a huge part of both the unbound writing process and living in an unbound way. So it just feels so aligned for us at the Unbound Press. What one piece of advice would you give to somebody who's feeling the call to write a book or maybe create a journal? Because I know a lot of the people in the Unbound community are interested in journals and maybe creating their own. What piece of advice would you give to somebody just starting out?
So for someone completely new who hasn't written before, I'd say it's a lot about mindset as well. Again, going back to sort of working on the positive attitude, because it's a discipline to be motivated to write it and go through the whole process. It's highs and lows, back and forward. You'll have the imposter come up and the doubts. So I think working on your mindset is a very key piece of the project, and being supported by the Unbound community as well. I think is very important. yeah, and ultimately you go for it and just keep believing in yourself. I think it's very much needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep
Mm.
going, even when it feels tough, like,
Yeah.
because your book is
But
needed.
also not pushing yourself in that same way, but
No,
just believing. Take pauses if you need to. It's okay to take breaks and get back into it as well.
push through and just get it done. No, that's not our style. Oh, amazing. Thanks so much, Lizzie. For those who are listening who want to know a little bit more about your work and kind of keep in touch, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
I guess it'd just be good on social media on the gram. Yeah, it's Elizabeth at Elizabeth Cambanos. Yeah, I'd love to connect. And yeah, if you read a book, I'd love to hear from them as well.
Fantastic. We'll make sure the link to your Instagram is in the show notes. Thank you so much for having this
Thank you very
conversation today. I'm just so excited that this book is out there in the world now. I know it's going to make such a difference to whoever comes into contact with it. So thank you so much, Lizzie.
Thank you.